Hey guys, it's Chili here. Welcome back to RPG Project Twin. Today we're going to be doing some huge work on the infrastructure of the engine. Specifically, the surface codex. We are going to rework it with templates to make it applicable to any type of resource that we want to load and share in our game. And we're going to apply that to sounds and sound effects. And that means we're going to have to massage the sound and the sound effect library to be able to work better in our codex system. Let's get started. Alright, now I got some really interesting architectural stuff to show you. This video, again, not going to be so much changes to the actual game itself, a lot of changes to the infrastructure and the stuff that is driving the game. So, what I've done here is, I had an idea. I want a codex for, I've got a codex for the surfaces. Now I want a codex for sounds because I want to share sounds between different entities. And then I thought to myself, well, I'm going to want a codex for sound, but I might want codexes for other kinds of things too. And instead of creating a separate codex class for every single thing, they're all very similar in structure. Why don't I create a codex template that can manage the resource, any kind of resource I want? So here you can see I renamed Surface Codex to just Codex, and there's going to be a bunch of edits here. Well, template class T Codex. So now we're templating it on T, and now instead of surface, we're going to put T everywhere. I say everywhere, but I've actually missed a bunch of spots and names here. Like here, this is called P surface, but it's not a surface anymore. It could be anything, right? And I mean, I've missed a spot basically. I've missed many spots, but we will here. It's still called static surface codex. Doesn't make any goddamn sense. It's just a codex, my friend. But this is the start of the revolution, so there's gonna be some growing pains here. And then in poo.h, we include codex, all the other stuff. Let's see as we progress. So no alias for old templates. Oh yeah, down here I added a little alias here, so I didn't have to change any code in poo.h or whatever. But later on, I decided, you know what? I don't want those aliases. I want it to just be template syntax. So I've changed it from surface codex to just codex surface. And I think that made me fix some bugs here. I had to change this surface codex to an actual, codex of surface, whatever. But that was for codex get, and this is still stupid, right? Because codex should be able to return it. You can't just hard code it to surface. It's got to be whatever T is. This should have been codex of T, but again, it was late. I don't know. Maybe I was coding this at work. I have no idea. But anyways, so we did some fixes there. We just changed it from surface codex to codex angle braces surface. And next thing I want to do, well, basically, I want to have all of my sounds and all of my sound effects using the codex, right? Now, my sounds and my sound effects, we load them with W string, but surfaces, those are working on narrow strings. So what I did is I want to make everything the same, right? So I had to convert everything over to W string. So I sanitized my code. I got rid of all the narrow strings. So obviously stuff like surface is going to be W string now. Font is working with W string. All these things have been converted over to W string. And once I did that, I was ready to load my first sound effects with the codex. And there's a bunch of things here. This commit should have been a bunch of commits. I lumped too many things together in here. But basically, when I tried to do that, I found all of the bugs that had been creeping in there because I didn't test properly. So let's look at some of these bugs if I can find them. First of all, like I said, this codex templated on surface shouldn't be, it should be templated on T, which is just codex, right? Next thing, just basically naming. Instead of naming it P surface, it should be P resource because it doesn't have to be a surface, right? It could be anything. And probably some other nasty, yeah, here's a surface pointer that should have been a T pointer. These things cropped out when I actually tried to test it with something other than a surface. Now the next thing I ran into was sound was no problem. I could load sounds with the codex. There was one problem, we'll get into that in a second. But the problem with sound effect is the constructor for sound effect takes lots of parameters, right? A standard deviation, whether it does a soft fail, and it takes an initializer list of wave files. But for Codex, we can only pass it a single string. So how do we get all this information to the sound effect? And the way I decided to do it was I've added a new, basically a new file type, and it's called SFX. And an SFX file, it holds the standard deviation, and it holds all the sounds that are a part of the sound effect, the sound effect matrix. So when I want to load a sound effect, I'm going to pass the file name of the SFX file, and the SFX file will be used to load the sound effects. So now I can load with a single string, which fits in well with my Codex system. So yeah, it's a very simple file loading here. We load the standard deviation, and then we do a loop, and we load all of the sound file names, and then we construct a sound effect with our old constructor based on that data, and then we just copy into the current object. So we can still load a sound effect the old way by passing in all the parameters, but if we want to load it using a meta file, we can also do that, and this is what will enable us to use our sound effects with our matrix. Now, the other problem that I had was kind of a big one, and that is, of course, like I said before, all the resources in our Codex have to be const. They're managed by a const pointer, because we don't want any one entity to be able to modify the resource for all the entities. And that's a problem because a lot of our functions that we call on our sounds, they weren't const. So I had to go in here and I had to constify everything. And some things in this sound class, I don't want to get too deep into the details of sound. If you're really interested, you can look into my old videos in Hugs on Xaudio 2, because I describe all this shit in those old videos. Just beware that they're very long and they're very detailed. But anyways, so there are things in here for multi-threading like mutex, and these ones, they're going to be changed when we call play. So in order to be able to make play a const function, we have got to basically label these things that are going to change. We label them as mutable, and what that is saying is that these things, they are allowed to change even in a const function. Now, it's very dangerous labeling things as mutable. You're basically circumventing the protection of const, so you have to think about what you're doing. And the rationale behind this isn't really changing the actual state of the meat of the object. This is just a little bit of superfluous data used for synchronization. So it's not changing anything about the sound itself. It is just changing some things that are used in the maintenance of and the synchronization of the internal sound system. And that is my rationale behind making them mutable, so that I can make this const so that everything works. And we actually have the same situation in sound effect, because sound effect has some randomness in it. So these distributions here, they have state, and when we use them, the state changes. So if we want to make play const, we have got to make these guys mutable as well. Now, also to make my life a little easier, I created a version of play that does not require a random engine to work. And the way this works is it just calls the normal play with default RNG, and default RNG is just static MT19937. So we've got now a static, basically a global RNG that all of the sound effects share, and if you want to call it play with that one, you can do it. Just you gotta beware, it's not going to be thread safe, so don't call this from multiple different threads, but that's not going to be an issue for us in this game. So yeah, many bug fixes, many mutilations, and if you can know what I mean now. And now we load the first sound effects with Codex. So where is that being done? Well, now we're going to load our sound effects in Chili itself, and all of the chilies or all of the poos or whatever are going to share the same sound effect. So what we do here is, and I've changed the code for surface a little bit, I just put the loading of the surface right here in the declaration of the member, and I like this better. It cleans up my constructor code a little bit. But for sound effect, we also here we put equals Codex of sound effect retrieve, and then the name of the sound effect. And now Chili can manage his own sounds, so we don't have to have that shit out in the actual game. So here I remove the surface loading from the constructor. Now it goes right in here, and in here, when I activate the damage effect, I play the hurt sound. And now in game.h, I don't need the hurt sound in here. I don't need to load it, and in here I don't need to play it now because Chili takes care of his own hurt sound. Now I remember why I added the static random number engine to the sound effect class. It's because I didn't want to add a random number engine to every entity like poo or chili. So when I could play without passing a random number engine. One thing I don't like here is how the damage effect controller is taking more and more responsibility about things that aren't graphics. This is kind of annoying me. It's growing cancerous. I'm gonna have to get some chemo in here at some point. But overall, I really like this new system. Next thing I do is just a little bit of better error messages for bad file names and sounds. I guess I had a problem with file names and sounds. I had trouble debugging it, so I figured I need to do a little better job of throwing diagnostic messages. So here, what I'm doing is asserting failed to load sound file and false. So for the sound effect here, if the bool soft fail is true, it will, even if the files don't exist, it will still create the sounds, just empty sounds for the sound effect. So the game won't crash, it'll just, that sound effect won't play. But if I'm in debug mode, I still want to know about that, so I put an assertion in here. Now I've changed that from an assertion to basically a throw, because a throw will it'll give me more information, because this exception here, this file exception, I've put a lot of information into it, my own custom exception class. So what I do is if not debug, then I want to throw this exception, otherwise just do a soft fail. So that gives me a little better diagnostics. And then in the constructor for sound, I just do an extra test here, and I throw an exception if the file extension format is bad. So if the size of the file name is less than 5 characters, it's not going to be a good file name. And I also want to make sure that the 4th character from the end is a dot. So I'm only supporting files with 3-letter extensions, and that should be fine for everything that I want to use. A little extra test here that will help me figure out when I've got bad file names, especially in my SFX files. Next thing I do is I just const some of the other playback functions. So down here, stop 1 and stop all, they better be const as well, otherwise I won't be able to call them from the const pointers that I get back from my codices. And poo sounds moved into poo. So now I'm moving all of the sounds out of game and into their actual entities that they're associated with, putting more responsibility, more cohesion in my code. So poo.h is going to have again, poo surface. We're going to do the loading code right here inside of the declaration of the member. I love this syntax here: codex surface retrieve, and then the name of the resource. So we got the poo hit sound and the poo death sound, and these are just basic sounds, not sound effects. We retrieve them. When we apply damage, we play the hit sound. If it's dead, we play the death sound. Your lifestyle determines your death style, etc. And up here, we remove this from the constructor because now the surface is the pointer is being set down here where it is declared. And that allows us to remove yet more bullshit from game.cpp. And the last entity we've got to move sounds for is, of course, the fireball, the bullet. So in bullet.h, and this one is interesting, we don't even have to store a pointer to the bullet sound, because the only time we ever play a bullet sound is when a bullet is spawned whenever we create a bullet. So what I do here is I just play the sound in the constructor. I don't even bother storing it. I just call codex sound retrieve, and then I just call play on that pointer and we're done. We don't even have to maintain that pointer anywhere in here. And I find that very sexy. I love it. And again, we can remove more bullshit from game.h and from game.cpp. And there you go. I love this codex system. It gives us a very simple, very efficient, and consistent way of managing and sharing our resources. And later on, when we get some better tech, like associative containers and smart pointers, it's going to be even better. And that's going to about do it for today. Let me know what you guys think about the length of this video. It's a little longer than the average twin video. Until next time, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please click the like button. It helps a lot. And I will see you soon with some more Project Twin.